stadium. So we pretty much converted that entire stadium into a professional recording studio with over 200 microphones, with state-of-the-art recording equipment, and that became the anthem. So basically it is the British Orchestra, it is the amazing legendary Indian classical musicians, the 14,000 children, and we are releasing this tomorrow on the 14th of August at 5 p.m. on the eve of Independence Day. So we are going to be showcasing a special exclusive preview to all of you, pre-release preview. So just a request that if all my friends in the media could turn off your cameras just for this 1.5 minutes while we play this particular anthem. It's a gift to everybody in India, every Indian, every person who appreciates India all over the world. We've withdrawn all copyright, all need for royalty or permission. You can use it for whatever purposes you want once it releases tomorrow at 5 p.m. So if you could please turn off the cameras, and also if you would please indulge me, if you're physically able to stand up, if you could stand up for the Indian national anthem, and if you could dim the lights. Here is the Indian national anthem. Thank you so much. Please share it tomorrow when it comes out at 5 p.m. And also, I forgot to mention, we won a Guinness World Record for this attempt. Anyway, thank you so much.
Ricky, that was awesome. And I don't know about others, but at least I had a lump in my throat as I kind of heard that. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for sharing. We wanted to also take a few minutes and hear from you if you have any lived experiences of, we showed a few statistics and stories, but it's ultimately all about lived experiences and unique experiences. If a few of you want to volunteer to share a small story, anecdote, which truly talks to about this community with big contributions, we'd love to hear that. So I'm not looking at anybody, I can cold call some people, but otherwise I'm very happy if a few of you put your hand up and share a story or two. Can we have a mic available? Oh, we have a mic. So I'm sure the ambassador can add more stories, but anybody else would love to share an anecdote or two? All right, thank you very much for being the first volunteer. So I'm sure that'll open up. So please share your story.
Hi.
And introduce yourself as well.
Yes. Good morning. I'm Dr. Smriti Pahava, and I work with Arogya World, an organization led by Dr. Nalini Saligram, and who are members of India Philanthropy Alliance. And Nalini talks so highly about Indiaspora and all the work that you do. So I have been in India all my life, but I come from the social impact sector. And last 25 years, I worked across, with researchers with Indian origin and also with philanthropists with Indian origins. And if I were to kind of, one thing striking that comes to my mind is the passion with which people who are not in India but with Indian origin, no matter what generation, they feel for the country. So I've always been moved by that passion. And one thing that, and while we were looking at all the statistics, please don't quiz me on that, but one thing that I was really going through my head was, if there is a way to channel all that passion, because sometimes passion comes with bias, and passion comes with, I hail from that particular area, so I need to, which is natural, we are human. But I think statistics like this and putting science and facts and data to it is a good way of, shaping and streamlining that passion and trying to organize the philanthropic and other resource, kind of initiatives to progress areas in India. And like Ambassador said, India plus US is not the case. It's India and multiplied with the US. So I think sky is the limit, and big congratulations on the report. And the key word that I really am looking at is boundless horizons. So truly, I think it's just a start with objectivity, with data, and so much wisdom across the community. I think sky is the limit. So I'm really hopeful. Thank you.
So thank you for sharing that. So actually that got me thinking. There's a phrase we often use in my firm, which is to make any change happen, the head, the heart, and the hands need to work in tandem. So I think the report touches a lot on the head and the hands, but I think there's this part of the heart and the passion which you talked about, which I think brings the glue together and makes true magic happen. So thank you for sharing that. Would love to hear a couple more if somebody else is, if that inspired you. Okay, please, let's go there. And Vikash and Ashish, I may come for you, so just advance warning. Please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Astha Verma. I have actually lived across the three very prominent regions that Ambassador mentioned, in California, in the UAE, as well as India. And I'm a filmmaker by profession, and this report is so interesting to me because currently we're working on something which really, is addressing the notion of boundless horizons, where we are bringing out stories from the Indian diaspora across the globe, split between multiple seasons, and we really hope that this reaches to the people from the Indian diaspora globally. The biggest I think takeaway from a report like this is not only does it provide very solid data to anyone who is out there and bringing out this to everyone globally, but also is able to facilitate more stories that can actually come to us. So thank you so much for bringing this and having us here. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. All right, one more. Okay, we'll come to you. Piyush, you have something you want to say? No?
Yeah, can I?
Yeah, please go for
Hi,
it.
my name is Meera Harish. I work at an organization called Sattva, which is an impact consulting firm. But I wanted to just refer to what the ambassador mentioned of not the US but another country, Fiji. Ambassador, I used to work for the Tata Group in their consumer durable business 25 years ago. And we launched one of our consumer durable brands in Fiji. The largest private sector group in Fiji distributing consumer durables and the best brands in the world is actually the Indian diaspora. The Tatars of Fiji called the Tapu Group. And this is really going back 26 years, and it just brings back memories of what the Indian diaspora does across the world. And I just wanted to refer to Fiji as in not a recent story, but a story that's 25 years and beyond that actually. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And that actually, I flew in from Jakarta today morning, and I was meeting some of the new appointees in the government in Indonesia yesterday. And one thing which really touched a chord was the fact that they look up to India for inspiration and learning on a lot of areas in this. So there's also a role which we didn't call out as much as in India being a role model for other nations to emulate as well, which I think also comes out a lot. So they called out obviously the digital identity and the Aadhaar work, but more broadly on the complexity of running a center, state, province kind of a model, which is very unique, complex politics, which they want to learn from India as well. That was nice to hear. Okay, we had more hands there, please.
Thank you, Neeraj. My name is Amit Shahi, and I run a small business in Davos, Switzerland, enabling governments and corporations to tell their stories to the audience in Davos. About 10 years ago, we were organizing an event for the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, in Davos. And one of our speakers was an Indian American called Tribahini Bradu. And she was a World Economic Forum technology pioneer. So once the event was over, I was walking her out of the venue. And I told her that, about 20 years ago, I had a road accident. And I was paralyzed for 9 months. And the physiotherapist who helped me come back onto my feet also had the same surname, Bradu, and he was from Kashmir. So she said, hang on a minute. She took out her mobile phone and put me in touch with Dr. Bradu, who happened to be her father's younger brother. So this is just an example of where you can run into an accomplished Indian, whether it's on the streets of Davos or anywhere in the world. So this is a sterling example of how people from the diaspora are contributing to our well-being in every part of the world. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Okay, we have Sarika there. Maybe we'll come to you, Sarika. But just before we go to Sarika, I think I've been to Davos many times in the recent years, and actually MR, where's MR? MR probably stepped out to get the minister. But I think we should put a picture of that in the report. If you walked on the main alleyway or the main road where Davos really happens, it's with every passing year, the share of India on that road is just ever increasing. So it just shows also the arrival in a very different way. It manifests itself. When you see it, you kind of visually feel it. Sorry, the mic there.
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot, Neeraj. This is Sarika here. I work for Palaksha University. But my relationship or my interest with the US Embassy started something like 12 years ago. I was moving as a corporate banker towards a social entrepreneurship, and at that point of time, when I was just starting my entrepreneurial journey, I got nominated by the US Embassy for the Fortune program. And at that point of time, I was introduced to such a strong network of women leaders across the globe who not only supported us in our entrepreneurial journey, but the US Embassy and the Fortune and the Vital Voices program continued supporting it even till then. 2 weeks later, we are actually all meeting in Sri Lanka, and these are women leaders from across the globe. The second twist with the India diaspora was when I joined Palaksha University, which is a very unique collective philanthropic effort which we are trying to build a legacy for the future generations in India. I believe the warmth and the support which we received from this network across the globe, wherever we visited, in the US, Seattle, New York, the India Diaspora Network and the members, they have always been welcoming us with open arms. So really big thank you to all of them.
Thanks, Sarika. Okay, yeah, to you, and then I'll go to Vikash. Probably the last few comments, unless the minister is still. Yeah, please, if you can get the mic there. He had his hand up earlier.
Hi, I'm Anirudh. First of all, thank you for the event. It's really amazing. I've been to a lot of Indiaspora events. I'll share 2 stories. So, I've been a student in the US since '96. And the kind of respect that Indians have today is amazing. And a large part goes to the Indiaspora. So a big round of applause to that. Whenever we go to the US, you feel like a star. And before you used to be scared, or I don't know, you used to feel a little unsure. And the second is that we run an organization called Khushi in India, which we take care of more than 230,000 kids a year, remedial education. And about a few years ago, we went to the Bay Area and we opened arms and said, come on, help us. And you will not believe people who were not even, connected to the villages where we work. We have raised millions of dollars, and we keep on doing every year, going to the US. So a big thank you to Indiaspora for supporting us and supporting our cause. Thank you.
All right. So, look, thank you for that. Vikash, maybe we pass on that, if that's okay. So, Amar, if you want to come up as well, and Shri, come up. You should do this. But a very, very warm welcome to our External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. So.
Thank you, Neeraj. Now, we heard the Ambassador. Thank you once again, Ambassador, for the terrific speech you did. Now, we have the pleasure of inviting Dr. S. Jaishankar, Minister of External Affairs, Government of India. MR, please come up, and Rajan, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Dr. Jaishankar, for being here with us today. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation around building bridges, and what Indiaspora and the diaspora has done, over the years, both as an organization and as a community, is actually build bridges. And as you see, boundless horizons, from what can emerge from this relationship. So again, thank you for being here with us. Let me begin by, asking you, you spent a lot of time in the US yourself. You're ambassador there, and you understand the dynamic of the diaspora. And, you've also engaged from both sides. So when you go to the US, really, what do you do?
Meet the diaspora.
What do you enjoy doing in the US, which you only do in...
No, but look, I went to the US the first time early 80s, and I don't know how many of you from India would have been there that early, and it was very different. I mean, you didn't have that many Indians. Even the Indians who were there were not necessarily, had the positions and the I would say the skill sets which made them as prominent as they have now become. So in that sense, our own branding in American eyes was very different then, and the community itself was relatively, they were in certain narrow pockets doing a few things. So it's actually been a sea change, and so when you ask me what do I do when I go there, I mean a lot of it is really catch up with friends. And I mean, the US is the US. There are some things in the US which are very peculiarly American. I mean, you don't get it anywhere else, including, I mean, it could be American food. It's, I mean, there are a lot of things. Don't get me going there.
No, thank you. It's just wanted to kickstart that before we get into, more serious stuff, because, there's so much going on in the world, Minister, nowadays, and you've talked about a fast-changing, disruptive world, so many things happening. So how do you see the world? I know you've just come back and you're meeting so many people around the world. And before we go deeper into the diaspora, your view on the world today, and really what's on top of your mind?
Well, look, if you ask me my view of the world, I'm an optimistic person, and generally tend to think of solutions to problems rather than the problems which come out of solutions. But I would say with a great deal of sobriety that we are going through an exceptionally difficult period. I mean, if I were to say give a 5-year forecast, it would be a very grim forecast for the next 5 years. And there, I think the answers are there. I mean, you have what you see happening in the Middle East, what you see happening in Ukraine, what you see happening in Southeast Asia, East Asia, the continued impact of the COVID, which those of us who have come out of it take for granted, but many have not come out of it. Then, the kind of economic challenges which you see in the world, you see more and more countries struggling, their trade is getting difficult, facing foreign exchange shortages. So, disruptions of various kinds. I mean, like what was happening in the Red Sea. Climate events which are no longer, just news. I mean, they have globally disruptive consequences. Sometimes entire regions of countries being basically made dysfunctional because of a climate event. So So if you ask me, if you connect all these dots and say, okay, what do you see? I see, frankly, a very, very challenging scenario, and which to me is actually a very big case for India-US ties, because in this kind of situation, it's really, in a way, those with the willingness and the ability and the comfort of working with each other who have to step forward. And I don't think, it can't be done the old-fashioned way that you have agreements and treaties and arrangements. Life is moving too fast for that. I mean, there's a problem. If you don't have an answer in the next 48 hours, you're irrelevant to that problem.
And that impact is coming on business, everything, because geopolitics, economics, technology choices,
sure.
all are interlinked, right?
I mean, in a way, that too is, by the way, I didn't mention that, but that too, I think, is part of the more complicated world, which is, technology actually has eroded so many lines, the domestic line and the external line, the efficiency line and the privacy line, in a way. So there's a kind of a flip side to everything, and I would say, in fact, that kind of world, the intensity of it, how deep it gets into our lives, the speed of it, I think all of which actually makes for a very different case, really, for relationships. So when I'm now saying this as an Indian, and I'm sure somebody in the US or in any other country is doing an equivalent calculation. I think today it's necessary to go back to the drawing board and to look at different relationships and say, okay, in this very tough scenario, with these, as I say, climate challenges, technology challenges, economic dependency challenges, the globalization, the pluses and minuses of it. How do you rework every relationship to get the optimum out of it? And there will be a kind of a rebalancing of relationships. There will be some which will suddenly become much more important, some which will become more worrisome, some where, you start to look at it with completely fresh eyes. So all of that is taking place.
So this year, as you know, Minister, 60% of the world has had elections, but I come from the U.S. There's one more small one to happen in about 3 months. So what is your take in general with the U.S. elections, and how is India prepared for it and to deal with a new administration?
Well, what is my take on elections? We like elections in this country. We're holding them permanently. So we've just been through one. And by and large, our elections are a real, in many ways, a test of the candidate, of the public, of the system. And we continuously pass those tests. So, in that sense, this is a country where you will always see people supportive of democratic processes all over the world. In terms of US elections, we generally don't comment on other people's elections because we also hope others don't comment on ours. But as I said, look, the American system will throw up its verdict, and I'm not saying this just as a formality, but if you look over the last 20 odd years, maybe a little bit more, for us, we have every confidence that we will be able to work with the President of the United States, whoever he or she will be.
Good. Thank you. So in that regard, moving from that to the impact report we are just launching today, you've been in the U.S., you've lived in the U.S., and some of your relatives are in the U.S., and they're part of the diaspora. So how do you view the Indian diaspora and its role with the U.S.-India relationship. How have you seen, like you said, when you first went, there were hardly anyone. Now there are 5.1 million. How do you see the evolution of that and the evolution of the U.S.-India relationship?
You know, I often cite, some of you would have heard me say this before. It's something I read in a very useful book on the India-US relations, that when Nehru first went to America, there were 3,000 Indian Americans. When Indira Gandhi went, first time SPM, it was 30,000. When Rajiv Gandhi went, it was 300,000. When Narendra Modi went, it was 3.3 million. So I mention that because I think, one, there is a quantitative side of it. But I think there's also, as I said, it's the skills, the talent, the contribution which the diaspora has made there, you know. I mean, I still remember this when I was ambassador. I was meeting a very well-known politician, I will tell Eric the name privately later on, from the deep south. And, you know, he actually told me, saying that, look, you know, I had this view of Indians, and then, you know, my wife had some issue, and she went to this doctor who was an Indian, and it was so good. And so why I say this is, people eventually put a face to a country. When we speak about members of the diaspora, now, sometimes people are not conscious of it, okay? I mean, I'm not saying everybody, particularly in America, asks people, okay, what's the country of your origin? I mean, otherwise your conversation would not go beyond that. But by and large, when in America people see the diaspora, members of the diaspora do well, they associate it with their image of India. And that then shapes their views about India. I mean, it is true all over the world, but I would say it is particularly true of the United States, because the United States in many ways is a very unique society, and because it has immigration from so many different sources. It has a way of using its immigration flows to also create a kind of a foreign policy metrics. And I think in that, the diaspora for us has been a very positive factor. You know, in the last, let us say, if we take the late 90s, really as when India-US relationship started to change course, you know, you could say, pick Clinton's visit to India just as an easy reference point, and then take it on from there. No question, it's, you know, the geopolitics, you know, end of the Cold War, all of that mattered. But I also think that a very equally powerful parallel happening was actually the growth, you know, H-1B did as much as the end of the Cold War to shape India-US relations.
So, you know, the diaspora, you're talking of how they've impacted the US. But, you know, Prime Minister Modi and the government has a very ambitious Viksit Bharat plan, you know, long 20 years, you know, progress for India and our transformation here to a developed country. How do you see the role of the diaspora? And, you know, diaspora, different countries is different, particularly American diaspora, but even, you know, around the world. What role do you see the diaspora playing in shaping the future of India?
Look, it's not an easy answer to give because it varies, obviously, country by country. It varies time to time, varies domain by domain. You know, again, if I were to do a sort of a broad comparison of diasporas in America, you know, and that's a little presumptuous of me because you people are the diaspora. But what is perhaps a little bit unique about the Indian diaspora, I mean, let's compare it to every other significant ethnic group which came into the United States. I don't think any other major diaspora flow kept as deep a connect with the land of origin as the Indian did. I mean, if you were definitely, we're not even talking of the Irish and the Italians, it was a different era, you know. But if you take, let us say, a lot of the other diaspora flows were people who left their country in adverse political circumstances, people who left it in difficult economic circumstances, you know, societies where there were tensions between the diaspora and the home system, you know. In our case, none of that has happened. In fact, actually, the diaspora and the home country, country of origin, you can say, bonding, has only got deeper. And also, I think somewhere, because there's a certain, you could say, an Indian cultural sort of a cultural system at work, it has also got, because by now you have, in many cases, third generation diaspora out there. Now again, in many other cases, the dilution of the original identity has been much sharper. That hasn't been, that's comparatively not the case. So I would argue in many ways, actually, the Indian diaspora is quite unique, you know, and because it's unique and because it's kept this bonding so strongly, that I think it's a very powerful bridge. And I'll tell you why I think it's particularly relevant now. If you ask me, in this very complicated world, if I were to pick a single issue which I believe is exceptionally important for the relationship and for the world for the next 5 years, I would actually pick in the broader sense, the digital collaboration, you know, the ISET, the AI. I mean, you take the most expansive thing and it'll just make you happy coming from the Silicon Valley, okay? But the fact is, what will be the connect there? The connect there is actually going to be a very human connect. That, you know, ironically, AI is actually going to require very trusted human relationships for AI collaborations actually to advance internationally. So I would argue that actually, perhaps more than ever before, today the Indian diaspora can create that level of comfort and you know, trust in very, very critical areas, which I think has the ability to propel our relationship to the next level.
That is very true, because a lot of chief ministers from states are coming to the U.S. Recently we hosted Telangana Chief Minister. A couple of weeks we're hosting the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, and we can see that connect between those states and the diaspora from those states, especially in AI and these ways. That's a good point.
You know, also I think the young, you know, generation, right, especially the diaspora, next gen, or you've talked of, you know, many generations. Like I am a product of a third gen who came back to India and, you know, based here. But towards that, I think a lot of the next gen and young gen are, in a way, you know, a little disconnected, right? Because they're trying to figure out how to engage deeper. I mean, there was a discussion of dual citizenship and things like that. Are all of these anything like that can attract and bring a large part of the diaspora to connect deeper with India?
Look, my own sense is, I'm not saying the dual citizenship issue is irrelevant. It's far more complicated because, you know, this part of the world has a different history. It's not realistic to transpose, let us say, the American template out here. So my sense is that we have to really figure out, as in many other areas, an answer which is relevant to our own circumstance. I would be more focused on the effectiveness and the efficiency of the answer rather than the formality of it. you know. So if I can find ways by which the diaspora can work, travel, operate, relate more easily, that to me would be much more important, you know, rather than saying, okay, because, you know, do understand the moment in this, I mean, the moment you get into citizenship, a lot of other things come with it, you know. I would, for example, you know, we would have concerns about what our citizens may be doing in the service of another country. So now when you have a dual citizenship, that raises a very fundamental issue. So I don't think it's as simple as that, you know, make it easy and give dual citizenship. But I take the basic point, which is that the diaspora will want, and I think legitimately will expect that, you know, as our relationship, India and US, gets closer, that it becomes much easier for them. You know, the bridge should become broader, easier, smoother, faster. That I get that.
Got it. Minister, you know, last year we held the G20 Forum for the Diaspora in New Delhi. And we had, there are 30 million people, as you know, of Indian origin outside of India. And we had 300 leaders from 26 countries come to Delhi. We had a wall of flags to represent different countries. And next year we're announcing the Indiaspora Forum for Good, where we want to convene 500 leaders of the diaspora coming together. So as India kind of is marching on the path to 100 years of being an independent country, what can the diaspora do to help India in its journey?
You know, I feel there's a lot which can be done, because if you look today at the goals and objectives, in a way, the challenges, because that's what you are addressing, a lot of it has to do with, in a sense, upgrading skills and talent in India. If one looks even, I mean, you look at the recent budget, for example, the core, you know, a central element of it was really how do we enhance the skills pool, expand the talent base of this country. And this isn't, there's no single answer to it. It's not like you create a skills machine, you know. Some of it is education, some of it is corporate, some of it is exchanges. So what I think where the diaspora actually can make a very valuable contribution, as we are all moving into a more digital age, is really that bond which I see actually as the increasingly central bond between India and the United States, the digital connect between that. To the extent in various areas they can contribute to the strengthening of that, it would help. Now, I give you an example. You know, in the last few years, this country, after years of neglect, has decided to rectify its, you know, its shortcomings in the field of semiconductors and, you know, the associated areas. So, if you look today at many of the collaborations which are taking place there, when it comes to foundries, or when it comes to ATMP, or when it comes to associated skills, when you look at global capability centers which are coming in here, you know, the chip design sort of industry which is growing in this country. To me, that's a great example actually where very key figures of the diaspora have been drivers of this. So I do think that the diaspora definitely, look, where the diaspora helps is, in many ways, they have they have a cultural feel for how to get the job done better than those who may be dealing with India for the first time, or who may be dealing with it just as a job rather than as something they intuitively know. I think it makes a difference. After all, you look at us, even in diplomacy, part of the reason you are exposed to a foreign environment and study a foreign environment is you instinctively know the answer which somebody who hasn't had exposure there would take longer to figure out. Now, the diaspora people, they slide into it like fish in water. So they just figure it out like that. And I think that makes a big difference.
Talking of the future and what we
here's
can
an
do.
example.
What's that?
I said, here's an example.
No, absolutely. No, thank you. But, again, talking about the future, same thing, and I know we are, running out of time. But, when you talk of India today, right, they said there couldn't be a better time to be young and to be Indian. The ability for India also now to play a much larger role globally, right? Maybe, again, going a little, but if you were younger, I mean, not that you're still a youth icon in this country. You were younger in India, or you were a young American, you understand both sides. How should the youth of the two countries view this relationship? Where can, they play a larger role?
Look, I think the youth have been indicating the preference for some time. It's just that the non-youth haven't been listening. And I've been,
You mean the old people, the seniors.
I'd actually put it very differently. Some time ago, when I was first involved in writing a book, one of my points was that there is a official foreign policy kind of formulation, strategizing. Then there is a view of foreign policy from the street. And if you look at the street sentiment about the United States, I would argue that street sentiment about the United States changed way before official sentiment about the United States changed. And in many ways, and I've at critical moments, in fact, when there were very animated debates in this country on what we are doing. Those arguing for a stronger relationship with the United States could visibly see that they were getting very strong public support. So I think, we look in the foreign policy world, we use very fancy terms. It helps, that's how we keep everybody else listening to us and believing in us. But just apply common sense yardsticks. Okay? Take trade, take investment, take technology, take education, take tourism. Okay, this is an average person's ask of the world. I don't know if there's anything else I missed out. Okay, maybe culture. What do you see? Or at your social media? Use these yardsticks and map the relationships. I think you make a very strong case for a very strong India-US relationship. And I think at the end of the day, believe me, youth go much more by sturdy common sense. The older we get, we muddle our heads with too many complex thoughts.
Too much baggage.
Yeah.
On that note, Minister, we have to close the session. Thank you so much for being here, and we're going to launch the report.
May I invite the Ambassador, Eric Arceti Neeraj, to please join us.
Thank you. Yeah, may I request Ambassador Neeraj?
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. We'll break for half an hour coffee break. It's outside, served outside. And please come back by 11:55. Thank you.